All right, let's get into the basic of texturing, how we can use this to our advantage, and how we can create endless variations with a few simple but powerful tricks. I will split this lesson into two, so we are going into the methods right now. And on Friday, we are creating some textures. You can also call them assets that you can reuse on any project. Yeah, so let's get started. It's probably something we are going to do on Friday, which is a walkway. Also split these two, but it's not for today. So for texturing, there are a few different ways. There are images, which are great because you have a lot of detail, a lot of realism because it's a real photo. You have little control over what you can do, and it's hard to find a texture that's actually fitting for your scene. But you can feel some parts of this. Then we do have PBR materials created from scans mostly, made somewhat seamless. Again, with one simple PBR material, it's not that interesting because let's take this one for example. And if we zoom out, we can see a lot of repetitive things going on. And the third one would be fully procedural, which can look incredibly good, could be also require quite some power of your machine. Okay, so why not try to take the advantages of what's it called, the procedural way, where we have the control over where cracks are, where the repetition is just not as visible or not even there. And how we can get rid of tiling from tileable things. So let's start with something from the floor. So let's type in floor. How to use. Well, let's see. Let's actually use these two. So I want to use this one, which that's quite good for tileable image. And we want to mix this with this one. Both are really great for tileable thing. So I will download both of them. Sorry. And then in Blender, I'll open a new blend file. Or I will crash Blender and start a new one. And I will add a plane. 1.6 meters and 1.9 meters. Let's keep it at 2. The default one. I will extract both of them. So first of all, I will change my bottom window tile to a shade editor. Change this to material preview. So let's screencast for you guys. Add a new material and call this ground. Now to add the PBR material, I press Ctrl Shift plus T. And this window will open. If it does not open for you, go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and type in Node Wrangler, one of the best add-ons that's built in Blender. So then click on the principal BSDF, Ctrl Shift plus T, go to your download folder, and let's start with the tiles. Select all of them and press Principal Texture Setup. And it connects them for you. You can see this is our setup. Now we would like to add a second one. So put this one above, a bit higher, do the same thing, and we will add the second one, the pebbles. Hello? Don't know what I did, but hey. Let's do this again. Select all of them, import. So now we have two different materials in here. Disconnect this one so we can see them. Up a bit more. And now we need to combine these. In that case, we would probably combine them between here. Or we want to set a gradient on one side, the other to get a smooth transition. Here's one cool idea behind this. And this is to take one of the displacement maps, or you can even take the texture map itself. So if we look at the displacement map, for example, the white or the black patches, change the direction. Change the material. So if we connect this one to a color ramp, and look at this. So Control Shift plus left click on any thing will connect this to the output. And now we boost the contrast. Probably like this because I want the white parts. All right, and now we need a mix color. Not a combine color, we need a mix color. Thank you. And I will change this to color burn. Because what color burn does is if we change the factor to whatever, we change this to 0, our factor uses the strength. And now if we add a mix shader, add this one as our vector, connect both of them together. Let's see, let's invert them. There should be a button. We can see we did change the texture to something else, and with the vector we can change it back or more. Same thing in here. We can do the same thing. Now we have a completely new texture. If we compare it, that looks more interesting. And we still have the tiling problem. Now for the tiling problem. Probably hard to demonstrate with this one. But let's just say we use a scale of 5. We should also do here then. Or even 10. So if we zoom in, it's a bit realistic, a bit more realistic. You can see the color is off, the coloring is off. Especially the color gives it away. Now, for a structure like these stones, the easiest method doesn't really give the same result that I would like, but I will still show it to you. So under the mapping for our stone texture in this case, we will add a Voronoi texture. So look at it, I will choose color and then change the method to anything you like. I usually like something like this. And we connect this to rotation. So what this does is connect something like this. It uses for each color in here a different rotation. We need to use UV in here. So probably should show you this with the pebbles because it's a little bit easier to see. Here you can see detailing. If we add the Voronoi texture, color to rotation, I like to use this one. Change the scale. And now we have, if we go close in, we can see some seams, but it's still quite decent. Detail does just fuck this up a lot. Or actually doesn't fuck it up if you use a low scale value. You can change the roughness to I usually just don't use any detail and play with the scale. Now you can see it's not looking as repetitive, if you can even see it. Let me just boost the contrast so it's visible for you guys. Change this around. So without this, we can see it quite extreme. Now you can quite see them extremely. If we connect this to rotation, it's randomized. Now for the second one, it's not that easy because if we use the same method, oops, the Voronoi, our main thing goes away. Our main our what's it called, the structure goes away. So what can we do? We can change the color. We can even try it with the Voronoi. So let's add a mixed color. Oops, and we can add a second one, just add the same and add a Voronoi texture. And use a hue and saturation value for one of these two and change the color of it slightly. 0.525, maybe the saturation a bit lower and a bit darker. Now, if we change this, it should, let's make this completely different. Something like this. Better. Well, the color should be relatively the same. Saturation maybe and darker. And even add detail in here. Roughness, just the way you like it, and then play with the value. And now this is better. Now if we combine both of them, it looks shit again because we now need to dial this in again till we get the desired result. Now we could also add this to the roughness and the displacement. So we simply add, not to this one, in here, color is a factor. but mostly I would not add it to the roughness, but to the normal map. Why you can see why you still have the normal map. Let's have a look. Let's add just the blue. And then find something that's a bit better. Overlay looks a lot better. Now if we look at this, it has more variation and it's still repetitive with these, but they're hard to get away with. Now there's one more thing. Instead, we can add a grunge map over it, which is the same thing. We can add a second material, mix over it, and as a factor, search for a grunge map. So maybe under Texture Ninja, if we search for grunge, I did not click on this. Let's use this one as the grunge map, download it, and add an image texture in here. The image texture, Control-Shift-T, open it, and then use a color ramp because we need this to be black and white. We connect it. Something like this. Looks good. Add this as the mix factor. And now simply add a variation of a color in here. And change the strength of it. Probably change this around. Let me something like this maybe. And then you can change the color to whatever you want. Dark is normally good, or use any of these spots and darken them a bit so they have the same color value. And they're still affected. Now, to get this persistent, you should also do this in here. But you can use the same vector and everything. Because now it's also affected down here. But in that case, I want the white pebbles and make them darker. Now, that way we can create endless materials. So if we would take a grass one as a second example, add this one and make grass. Let's go to Polyhaven, type in grass, zoom up, let's give us, take this forest ground. We'll download the 1K version because I'm just not using 4K in there. Zip, extract, same principle. Control-Shift-T, get the grass or the forest ground, and that's it. Scale, let's go with 10. You can see the repetition. So first of all, let's get rid of it by adding the Voronoi texture. and add the color to the rotation. Now you can also already see what it does. I will change this a little bit. And from a bit further away, this doesn't look terrible. If you're really close, you can see seams, but otherwise, this gets rid of it. Now, you can also add a color variation. So you do the exact same thing. So add a mix factor, mix color, and you mix two colors again with a hue and saturation map. Make it more saturated, but a little bit browner and darker. So they're mixed, but now we want to have them mixed in on some parts. You can add any texture. So Shift A, texture, wave texture, noise texture. I usually use noise or what's it called, a Voronoi texture. The gradient texture is also a great tool. We add it, we can see the gradient goes whatever you select. And you can control it. Press Ctrl plus T. You have control over it, wherever it is, and these things. So if we add a noise texture, add the factor into the factor, we have even more detail in here. Could also add a color ramp as usual to strengthen this or weaken it. And you can always play with a different type to get the look you are craving. So the main ones I use is overlay, mix, and color burn for as shown in the first one. So that way you can create large landscapes with not that much of a repetition. In that case, I want it's brighter, but not too bright. Something like this. Great. Let's connect them properly. Now it looks a lot better. Now, one thing we did forget here, which I'm currently seeing, this looks terrible. The normal of our stones does not affect this a lot. Does this look better in here? No, also way too white. I would make this a lot dark. Why even? Why did I do this? Yeah, but the normal one should be in here, right? I'm currently confused. Yes, I do have, but this one should be mixed with this one. And even then, the only darker in here. Let's do this. Let's fix this one real quick. Brightness. Just change this. Great. Now, this looks better already. We could also mix the displacement maps. But to be fair, for our purposes, we will get a texture like this in the end. And so what do we have? We can mix two textures. You can get away with tiling. Add dark spots. Get the image over this. Let's also add these two materials together. This one would be probably a fun one. So right on the top, we want this. So basically, we want them to overlap, but in one place. Let's do this. Thank you. All right. So this is one material, and now we want a second one, which is this one. So let's copy this, just press Ctrl C 500 times and put this in here. And now we need to mix them. So we add a mix shader. And if we simply mix both of them together, it looks weird because they're just overlaid over each other. So let's add our mask as a gradient. Let's add a gradient texture, and I want it from the top to the bottom. Yeah, 90 degrees, and then pull this up to around here. Maybe here. Now, if I put this into the factor, also add a color ramp, because currently not completely. We can see this does only, yeah, it doesn't look right. We need to do the same thing as, where is it? Right here, the color burn. And we actually can use exactly this one to mix them over. So mix color. That's a mix mix color, please. A bit small. So A and B. And then we can take this import as the factor. Now we use color burn. Make this completely black. And if we connect this one, looks better, but I want a bit more control. So small. Add a color ramp. Maybe add also noise over it because it's flat and flat is never good. So also add a noise texture. And mix this. Mix color. Probably before the that would mean we also have some stuff over here. Should. Yep. Now we can see this way better. We have this blended over. If we change this depending on which way around, we can see the underlying texture. Good, this way it looks even better. Maybe easily even more. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. We have a blended material. Maybe even oops, we can get rid of most of the things or play with the details a little bit. Now, these are the basics. But these are fundamentally if you want to create interesting looking assets. On Friday, we will create a wall you can reuse. Probably a walkway. And depending on how fast we are, I think of something else or ask you in the Discord to, to see what you would like to see or to have.